The story starts in the deserts of Arabia in 632 AD, when the Islamic prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, conquered most of the Arabian Peninsula and spread the new religion of Islam, which grew rapidly. Sadly, after doing this at age 61, Muhammad, peace be upon him, died. His successor would be Abu Bakr. But after the prophet died, the territory descended into internal tribal conflict. You see, this Islamic territory had no proper governance. Most historians call this territory Medina or just the Caliphate. So Abu Bakr and other companions of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, consolidated these lands into the Rashidun Caliphate, which means rightly guided caliphate. The Rashidun Caliphate would be the first of three main Islamic caliphates. There were two other major nations at the time, the Sassanids and the Byzantines. Since the Byzantines and Sassanids were much older than the Rashidun Caliphate, the Byzantines and Sassanids fought many wars against each other, which severely weakened their armies. Since the Byzantine and Sassanid armies were weakened, it allowed the Rashidun Caliphate to send a northern expedition into Sassanid and Byzantine territory. These lands were conquered by Khalid bin Walid and Abu Ubaidah. But the real Islamic conquest would start in Jerusalem, when Rashidun troops besieged Jerusalem. Eventually, the Byzantines were pushed back, and Jerusalem was captured. At this point in time, Abu Bakr, the Caliph, died. His successor would be Umar, the new Caliph. Umar oversaw most of the Caliphate's conquests. Umar appointed Abu Ubaidah as a military commander and ordered him to invade the Levant, so Abu Ubaidah gathered his troops and successfully invaded the Levant, capturing Damascus. But the Byzantine Emperor Heraclius ordered his best men and generals to counterattack, which they successfully did. Abu Ubaidah could not lead the army anymore, so the legendary Islamic warrior Khalid bin Walid took leadership, and under his leadership, the army successfully retook Damascus and conquered the Levant. The Caliphate's capital would be centered in Medina. The Byzantine Empire was now split into two, so the commander-general Umar took this as an opportunity and placed his army of 4,000 to the Egyptian border. Umar wanted to conquest all of Byzantine Africa, but the Caliph Umar denied his request. Nonetheless, he went through with his conquest, despite Umar denying it. He marched his armies into Egypt and successfully conquered it, turning it into Rashidun territory. A special jizya tax was placed on non-Muslims in the Caliphate. These taxes would fund the Caliphate. Although the Byzantines had better equipment, troops, and manpower, the Islamic warriors successfully conquered a large portion of the Byzantine territory. This was mainly due to the Islamic warriors' speed and determination. At this point in time, it was 642 AD, and until this point, Islamic conquest had only been of Byzantine land, not Sassanid land, because Umar wanted to focus on the western conquest first. But in 643 to 650 AD, Umar ordered the full-blown conquest of the Sassanids. The Sassanids had better equipment and manpower. However, due to their recent wars with the Byzantines and complete unreadiness for the Islamic power, the Islamic conquest of the Sassanids was successful. This would lead to the collapse of the Sasanian Empire. Now that the Sassanid had collapsed, Umar attempted to take the Byzantine Empire and Constantinople, but he failed to do so, and only minor territory was gained. At this point in time, the Rashidun Caliphate would be at its greatest extent, stretching from northern Africa all the way to the Indian subcontinent. The quality of life in the Caliphate was good, but it wouldn't last as the downfall of the Caliphate had started. The downfall started when Feroz Nahavandi, a Persian prisoner of war from the Rashidun Sassanid Wars, assassinated the Caliph Umar. The new Caliph was placed as Usman. Usman's reign saw a lot of administrative change and reforms, such as the first Islamic Council was formed that would elect a Caliph and made decisions for the Caliphate. Usman also handed more power to provincial rulers. and governors to govern certain parts of the caliphate. Although this was good for administration, it divided the caliphate into furthermore regions, and it also gave power to some corrupt Arab leaders. But Usman's administrative reign ended when a group of assassins from Egypt that were unhappy with Usman's policies went to Medina and assassinated him. Ali was placed as the new caliph. But a man named Muawiyah, who was the governor of Syria under Usman's administration, didn't accept Ali's reign as caliph. So both parties in disagreement marched north with their armies to modern-day Iraq, where both armies fought at the Battle of Siffin. Both sides fought valiantly, but the battle turned into a stalemate, so a peace treaty was organized. Muawiyah got the western regions of Syria and Egypt as his own territory, which he would govern from Damascus, and Ali would continue to rule as caliph for the Rashidun Caliphate. Ali's reign as caliph wouldn't last long, because an assassin from a group called the Kharijites went to the Caliph Ali and killed him. The death of Ali was a tremendous loss for the Islamic world, but for Muawiyah it allowed his armies to freely march into the rest of the caliphate and take it. This would be the end for the story of the Rashidun Caliphate, as the new land conquered by Muawiyah would turn into the Umayyad Caliphate, which is a topic for another video. Stay tuned.